Hi guys, thanks for coming to check out this video and welcome to the channel if you're new here. Today I'm going to be setting up my Iceland theme for the month of October in my bullet journal. But before I get started, I just wanted to share with you a little bit of why I've been absent the last few weeks from the channel. I unfortunately lost my dad recently, so I've just been don't want to do that. So I've just been spending as much time as possible with him and then with my family, my mum and my brother, just really sharing that family time. So it's been actually really nice having a break from the channel and from my work. I just kind of put everything on hold, and although it was very hard to deal with, it's nice not having that extra weight on my shoulders. So sorry I was gone. I did miss you guys and I did miss doing the work, and Dad was a really big supporter of my channel and my art and my career in general. So this one is going to be for him. And now let's look into Iceland, an amazing place that he would have definitely loved to explore. So let's get started on the Iceland adventure. So getting started, as I like to usually do, I am working on a separate piece of paper for my cover page. I like to do this because it means I've got the freedom to use a bit more water and try and get a little bit more involved with my art and the artwork. And so I am using a hot pressed watercolor paper. And in terms of the paint that I'm using, it is Artex Jelly Gouache. Now, this time I'm going to try something a little bit different for this whole setup. I am usually one for lots of colour and lots of detail, but this month in particular has been challenging, so I kind of wanted to kind of keep it as simple as possible, but also I was feeling inspired by another artist's work that I've followed on Instagram, where she sort of keeps her colour palette all completely in blue tones, and I thought that was a really cool idea, and I wanted to try my hand at doing something like that. So I've decided to make this whole theme quite cohesive by following just a blue palette. And to be honest, it's kind of how I'm feeling, how I was feeling throughout the month. So it just kind of all seemed to tie in together and worked quite nicely. So what I'm trying to do throughout this whole setup is be mindful of the tones that I'm using and just try and mix together a bunch of blues to create the art and make it all nice and cohesive throughout the month. I have found that the last few months that I've done, they seem to get such a variety and mixture because there is no like trying to make it look like a theme that goes nicely together. It's more, what's my inspiration for that particular page. And I think at the end, sometimes it can look a bit of a Mod Podge collection of things. So I really wanted to try and make it all seem as it's part of one design theme pack this month. So something else I also wanted to try and incorporate into this cover page is try my hand at a little bit more of a animation style to the art. So in particular with the character. So normally I have our girl or myself in the location where I choose, and it often is kind of realistic-ish. No, I definitely wouldn't call it realistic, but it's based on the proper anatomy of a human. But I'm so inspired by people that can actually draw these characters from their head and just create really cool looking anime, I don't really know what to call it, just characters. So I'm trying to practice that in my spare time, and I thought I would try and input it into the picture. And I will tell you right now, I'm not 100% happy with this. In fact, I disliked it so much that after I scanned this whole theme in and I've got it available to buy on my website and on my online shop, I decided to digitally change the features on the face to make it more what I was hoping for. So I've just adjusted some simple little movements, like moving the mouth down a little bit and making the eyes, I think, slightly less big, or I just messed with it a little bit in Photoshop to just adjust the proportions better, and it was an amazing difference. So now I'm happy with it. So if you want to see the version I'm happy with, it's on my digital printable. So that's the beauty of digital photoshopping your artwork if you need to, because there's no way I could have fixed this on the page unless I felt like going in for another hour or two and trying to use acrylics on top of this, because it's just always going to show through. And I just didn't feel like doing that, to be honest. I just wanted to play with the digital software because I'm really enjoying that lately. So yes, not everything is perfect. I definitely wasn't happy with this initially, and I'm happy with it now. I love the colors. I love the color palette idea. I think I could have executed it better, but that is just my perfectionist ways, which I'm trying to get away from. Now I will talk a bit about the subject and why I chose this for the cover of my Iceland-inspired bullet journal theme. I've decided to combine a few elements that I learnt throughout my research of Iceland, and the first is the location where I'm setting this introductory scene is actually in the capital, which is Reykjavik, which is the home to over 60% of the Icelandic population. Its name, the Reykjavik, translated means Smoky Bay, which I just kind of immediately got this kind of calm, peaceful vibe of fogginess coming over the lake or the ocean, and I just liked the thought of that, so I kind of wanted to set it near the ocean. Reykjavik is actually believed to be the first settlement of anywhere in Iceland, so that kind of explains why it's heavily populated, and it's got a reputation for being one of the greenest, cleanest and safest cities in the world, so that's enough to make me want to go there for sure. Dogs, I found interestingly, are not around in Iceland. They were actually banned in 1924, and then for 60 years they were not allowed. So there was an increase in cat ownership. So I added a cat on this cover page just because I thought that was so interesting, that cats, are very prevalent there, but dogs not so much. Apparently tapeworm was the reason for this, because tapeworm was spreading from dogs to humans, and it had a mortality rate of 75%. So dogs were banned for a long time to stop the spread of that. You can now own a dog today, but you just have to be very diligent with vaccinations, otherwise you will be in trouble. So I felt it necessary to put a cat on the cover page, and I thought it would be nice for our girl to be in a cafe there. And interestingly, there's actually a cat cafe in Reykjavik, and I thought that was so cool. It's a place where stray cats are found and collected in the cafe, and you can go there and you can check out the cats that roam freely and you can adopt them. So I thought that was such a nice and quirky idea, so I thought I'll put that in the cover spread. It interested me quite a lot. And also what I've put into this cover spread as well, as she's sitting there drinking her tea with this cute cat, she's looking over, and this isn't an actual placement of this cafe, but she's looking over at the Imagine Peace Tower, which is actually a light tower dedicated to John Lennon from Yoko Ono, and it's on Hvítserkur Island, I think that's how you pronounce it. And it's created by 15 searchlights that project up into the sky from a 10-meter white column base. And apparently on a clear night, the lights reach what looks like about 4,000 meters into the sky. So I thought that sounded absolutely incredible, and I wanted to somehow portray that in my art, and I couldn't think of any other way to do it than to do a sort of nighttime scene. So I'm picturing this as maybe just after the sun's gone down and the Imagine Tower shoots way up into the sky, and she's chilling there with her cat and her cuppa. So that is what I've chosen for the cover page. I hope you like it. And it's growing on me. I must admit I was unhappy with it at the beginning, but just life right now, I was just like, let's just keep going, and hopefully happiness will follow. And it did. Eventually I became okay with this, and now I don't mind it at all. So after adding our little neon sign saying Oct, we're ready to move on to the next side, which is the calendar page. Now I've also jumped ahead and I didn't talk about the dividers that I did down the side. I love doing dividers or tabs on my setups, and I missed out on them last month, so I made sure to include them this month because it really does add something. One, it's more practical for me. I find myself easily flicking to the right page, but I think it just also visually floats my boat a lot more than not having them. So I think they're here to stay. So moving on to the calendar spread now. On the calendar page, I usually like to keep this pretty basic, and it's just going to be a calendar for my month where I put birthdays or things, important dates to remember. And then I also just track my YouTube growth on this page. So I only really choose one kind of inspiration point for this, and it's usually the national animal. So the national animal of Iceland is the gyrfalcon. Nope, that's not how you pronounce it. It's actually gyrfalcon. It's a J. This bird, the gyrfalcon, is the largest bird of the falcon family, and some may say the most beautiful as well, which I agree with. I think the patterns on their feathers is really interesting, and I loved drawing this guy. I just drew it in simple fine liner and then a little bit of blue marker throughout the page as well, just to add another color in. But yeah, it was really relaxing to just sketch away this guy and his patterns on the feathers. And then just another side note about the gyrfalcon, they were actually worshipped among the Vikings, and they became an integral part of the trade from Iceland in medieval times. I was really happy with the balance that I managed to get working on this page. I sort of wanted that bird in the center across that fold, and then I wanted to sort of stagger the calendar because you had those few extra days. So just by pushing the right hand side up and then bringing the left hand side down a bit, gave you that balance, and that's something that I often forget about doing in my setups. Like, I feel like I could think around the problem a little bit more than I currently do. So yeah, I was pretty pleased with how I challenged myself on that note there, and it worked. So here is the final calendar page. And now for the next page over. This is my needs and wants page. And this, if you have not been to the channel before, is a place that I write things that I need and want throughout the month. It's been very neglected lately. I haven't been writing a lot in there, to be honest, but because I'm so into this research thing, I can't bring myself to remove the spread. So at least it's there if I do need something or want something throughout the month. I just need to get better at writing it down. But yeah, so I like to focus on something that you might buy from the country, or just a quirky little fact about the country here. And so this page is dedicated to the very beautiful puffin. And puffins are, a lot of this reminded me of the Wales setup, because they had a few elements that were quite similar to Wales. And I never really thought about that, but it is obviously up in that northern hemisphere close to the Arctic, so I guess that's why they're very common in both places. But yeah, the puffin bird is quite representative of Iceland itself, and so I thought it would be cool to keep with that kind of quirky animated sort of idea and put the puffin in a Lopapeysa. And a Lopapeysa is a awesome jumper that you can buy from Iceland and bring back home as a really good souvenir. I just realized I called it a jumper, but it's technically an Icelandic sweater made from Icelandic sheep wool, and has a wide decorative circle surrounding the neck opening, and often down on the cuffs and the base of the jumper itself. So I thought that would be really cute to put a puffin in that. And then another little quirky fact that I found of Iceland that I wanted to include somewhere in the pages was the trolls and elves element. So it's trolls and elves are believed to exist by at least 80% of the population in Iceland. Elves locally are known as the hidden people, or Huldufólk, and all around the country you will find tiny replica houses and churches built for the elves out in the countryside, who are thought to live in the mountains and the rock formations on them. So they're very human-like, but they live amongst us but in a parallel world, and they look similar to humans, and they can make themselves visible at will. And people go as far as trying to protect them by stopping builds from happening from big companies that want to set up shop in Iceland. And if it's on the wrong part of a place where they believe the elves are, they will literally do anything to stop it from happening. So yeah, really cool idea, and I thought I'd love to get that into the setup somehow. So I've just drawn a few little houses that they make for the elves all throughout Iceland that you can go on an I think they're called alfhols, and you can go on a hunt for those across Iceland. So that would definitely be something to tick off the list of things to do when in Iceland. And now I'm moving on to the right-hand side page of this spread, which is where I write down our meal plan for the month. And this one is usually just for dinners. Sometimes I add lunches if I'm feeling like I really need to specify everything. I just left enough space for those days of the week and then decided what I wanted to decorate this page with. And I normally like to include something food-wise of the country, like maybe its national dish. But unfortunately, the national dish of Iceland sounds awful. It's called hakal, and it's fermented shark. So it's the national dish. It's a delicacy of gutted Greenland shark that is buried in a hole near the beach for 12 weeks. Then it's dug up and hung up to cure for 7 months. And then it's served mainly to the curious tourists with a shot of caraway flavoured spirit called Brennivin. Everything I read about this sounded disgusting, from the smell to the taste, so I'm definitely not curious enough to try this delicacy when I get to Iceland one day. I would be more open to trying the traditional Nordic dried fish delicacies, but definitely not this hakal. So I didn't really want to draw that. I didn't know how to draw that. So what I chose to do is Iceland's only bean-to-bar chocolate maker, and it's called OmNom chocolate, which I thought was just a genius name. And they specialize in making really premium chocolate that has unique flavors and seasonal flavors from Iceland. They don't come in chocolate blocks. They're not traditional like that. They're in shards, which I also thought was really cool because the logo has got like shards through it. I just like that kind of little attention to detail there. So they're really popular with tourists to take back as souvenirs, and they ship, I think, worldwide. Definitely a place with their unique flavors to visit and try some unique flavored chocolate. And actually, after I decided to illustrate this one in my research, it popped up quite quickly. And later on, I decided to watch the documentary series that Zac Efron has done called Down to Earth. It's on Netflix if you have it. But there's an Iceland episode, and one of the places that he visits, or that they visit, is the OmNom chocolate factory. So I found that really cool. And I was like, ooh, I picked that and I was going to draw that. How cool. So here's how this page turned out. And now I'm moving on to the next page, which is my mind map spread. The mind map is a place where I divulge ideas and thoughts that come into my mind throughout the month that are bogging up the mind, and they don't actually have a place to go in the rest of my spreads. Like, they're not a task exactly, they're just kind of an idea that I want to get down or something similar. So this page is really just a brainstorm place, and this one I usually like to focus on a well-known or recognized individual from the country itself. And when Iceland was chosen, I immediately thought of Björk. Now, Björk, I think everybody would know of her. She's a very famous singer, performer from many years ago, and I was always calling her the wrong name. In fact, I think most of the world calls her the wrong name. It's definitely pronounced Björk, but we all called her Björk for forever. So originally, when I first was growing up and I heard her music and saw her, I was a little bit put off. I wasn't exactly a fan. She was very out there and a little bit, unique in her own way. So I just never really liked the songs that I heard on the radio of hers, especially that one that she had, It's Oh So Quiet. That one used to just creep me out for some reason. I just didn't like that at all. And it wasn't until I met my husband now, but then my boyfriend, he showed me many years ago some of her albums that had the less well-known stuff on it, and I learnt the meaning of the Oh So Quiet song, and then I just learnt to really appreciate her stuff. And so now I actually enjoy listening to her music. It's very, very unique and just really emotional, and I definitely appreciate her work. So when I was looking for images to copy for this, for her portrait in this page, I found some really creepy stuff, and I kind of wanted to keep that sort of abstract idea that she always had for her albums and cover art and things like that. So kind of keep it a little bit bizarre, but I thought I would tie in a couple of things from one, Iceland, and from her. So her most famous outfit that I always remember is that swan dress that she wore for an awards or an event of some kind. And as I was reading about it, I learnt as well that she actually laid an egg on the red carpet, which I thought was really funny. And yeah, I thought I'll dress her in that in the portrait, and then I'll kind of add some elements that sort of flow off of her hair and kind of make it a little bit fantastical, and then include the Iceland's national flower, which is mountain avens, known in Icelandic as Holtasoli. And this flower has been used in history for a long time for its medicinal purposes to reduce inflammation, and its leaves can also be dried and used for tobacco and tea. So that's just a couple of little random facts about mountain avens. And just the way I used this on this spread is just to add that kind of fantastical element coming from the strands of her hair. And then I also incorporated some of the washi tape down on the right hand side on the tabs, and tried to bring that across into the page as well in the gold. Washi tape was actually perfect for this spread because there's actually little swans imprinted and designed in the washi tape, and I adore this one, and the colors were just so cohesive, the whole palette, and then to add that little splash of gold across the page really just was perfect for it. I'm using my Prismacolor pencils to create a sort of realistic face of Björk, and then just mostly using marker and fine liner and the gold pen everywhere else, so keeping it quite simple. And then for a while I kept it blank in the background, but when I did my flip through at the end, this page just kind of was missing something, so I thought it needed some contrast. So I added a circle in behind her of blue, and then a little bit more gold, and just threw across those gold elements, and it sort of just tied the whole page together by having that grounding circle behind her. So if you ever find your artwork feels a little bit flat or plain or something, maybe consider adding a little background shape or a background element that's fully coloured to enhance the drawing itself. And then this mind map page is complete. And now we're moving on to the next page, which is my goodliness page. Now this goodliness page is basically for my habit trackers, where I track all the good habits, and I normally do print them out on a single sort of grid section that I can just use on one page and then do the drawing on the other, but I decided to break them up this time. I haven't been using the habit trackers as much as I'd like to, so I wanted to condense it down once again just to like 6 core focus items, and I'm aiming to really complete these this month, this coming month I should say. And so I wanted to maybe make the picture just a little bit larger on this spread, but I did fancy just keeping it quite simple, so all I'm using in this page is the markers and the fine liner. The fine liner is the only thing that I use really on the drawing itself. So here I'm using the blue Pit Artist fine liner to draw the subject of this page, which I've chosen to go for another element that actually made me think of Wales, and that is Iceland's national treasure, Icelandic horses. They're very distinctive looking, and they're incredibly friendly apparently, and they've been part of Iceland's history since the beginning. Apparently in 980 AD, so over 1,000 years, the only horses allowed in Iceland is the Icelandic horses. So they don't import any other breeds, and once an Icelandic horse gets exported, it's never allowed back. So yeah, any horse you see in Iceland is an Icelandic horse that arrived with the Norwegian Vikings, 1,000 years ago. So they're not allowed to breed any other horses, which I just found was really cool. And like horses in Norse mythology were especially significant. Odin, the father of the Norse gods, had an 8-legged horse called Sleipnir. And I haven't gone too in deep to Norse mythology, although it does sound really interesting, so that could hopefully be a read in the future. But according to legend, the very famous waterfalls called Gothafos was actually supposed to have been made from the horse's shoe, and this waterfall is incredible, and it's just like a massive horseshoe shaped canyon full of waterfalls, and apparently it was Sleipnir the hooves that slammed into the ground and formed that canyon. So I found that interesting, and I forgot to draw it, so I thought I would speak it out here. And so that's why the horses were a good idea for the goodliness page, I think. Their fur is quite long, which is different to normal horses, more popular breeds of horses. So I guess that keeps them nice and warm in those cold temperatures. And that is how my goodliness page ended up, just nice and simple. This next page is my first weekly spread, which has actually only got 3 days in it for the first week of October. And this page, I had to include one of the amazing beauties of Iceland and a place I definitely want to go to, and it's called the Blue Lagoon. So because of all the volcanoes and obviously all the ice and the glaciers in Iceland, it's actually known as the land of fire and ice for those two reasons. So it has over 130 volcanoes, and it's known for its many naturally occurring hot springs. National Geographic actually named this one, the Blue Lagoon, as one of the 25 wonders of the world, and I can totally see why. It looks incredible. You might have also seen, if you have watched the documentary I mentioned before, Down to Earth, the Blue Lagoon is one of the most visited attractions in Iceland, so he actually went there in the series as well. And they've got beautiful milky blue waters, and it's in the middle of a black lava field. And the temperatures of the water, I think, are about 38 or 39 degrees Celsius, or if you're a Fahrenheit person, 100 degrees. So it's perfect for a little dip in the beautiful blue waters. A place to really soak up the absolute beauty of this place. So I think the shape of the pool was actually a man-made accident, but the heating and everything in it is all naturally derived from the volcanic soil and everything around it. So really impressive place, and totally on the bucket list if I get to Iceland one day. I did see on the documentary as well that people actually come there to relieve the symptoms of psoriasis. That's how it was discovered that this is beneficial for you, to have these natural mineral rich waters as a healing option for the psoriasis. So to illustrate this one, I'm just using my fine liner to kind of describe this little bridge that goes across one of the waters, and picturing the mountains in the background. And then there is a lot of fog as well in the imagery that I saw, but I didn't bother about including that into my art. I just wanted to use blue to represent the color of the water, and to be honest, I feel like this blue is what it is in person. Apparently it's incredibly bright and bold in color. So I just used a very small amount of the gouache directly onto the page. I didn't use too much water because it was such a large area that I was covering. I didn't want it to buckle on me. And then for the base of that page, I just thought I'd add some interest by adding some of the washi tape that I have been using. And then that's how this page turned out. Now I normally stop here with my first weekly and then create another video in the following week showing you how I do my weekly setups for the rest of the month. But this time, because of all of what's gone on, I thought I would include it all in the one hit. And I've also been wanting to try a little bit of a Dutch door weekly setup for a while. But because I haven't needed to, because I'm splitting it across the two videos, I haven't worried about it. But this time I think I will do just that. So I'm cutting it down the center, across horizontally I should say, the center of the page, and then creating 7 days across that bottom section. And then I'm doing that 3 or 4 times so that I've got 4 weeks in that bottom section, and then they can all have the same background, which is up the top. So for the subject for this page, I decided to focus on a couple of things that I really wanted to include in the setup, and one of them is called the Jökulsárlón Glacial Lagoon and the Diamond Beach. And so on this beach you have massive chunks of glacier basically broken off, and it looks like diamonds. They've got lots of shards of diamonds spreading all across this black beach. So that was really cool, and I wanted to make sure to draw that. I've also included a massive stone rhino called Hvítserkur, which is a 15-meter tall basalt rock stack protruding out of the bay, the ocean. And apparently it's got a lot of seagulls and shags and animals living on this that are constantly moving, making it look like it's in motion all the time, which kind of adds to the reason that they believe, they often call it the troll of the Northwest Island. So they often call it a troll, and that's because it looks moving, and you know, it's very, very unusual to see a rock formed like this. So I thought that was such a cool place to visit in Iceland, and wanted to get it onto the spreads. So I've just drawn it simply using a fine liner and then chucked a little bit of marker in to add some colour and depth to the spread, and then just kept it very simple for my days of the week so that I can easily plan my to-do lists on these days and it'll all be there ready for me. I actually really enjoyed making the weekly like this, so this might stick around, I'm not quite sure. But yeah, let me know what you think if you like this Dutch door idea to keep the weeks quite simple. It does mean that we lose the weekly video, but I'm happy to do that if you guys prefer it as well. And now I will say thank you very much for watching, and I will show you a flip through of what I've just created. And yeah, once again, apologies for the delay in this video, but I'm sure you all understand why that was now. And yeah, moving forward, I will be creating the Art on Cue piece for next week. So I will be putting out my community post asking you guys if you have a word now that you think of when you think of Iceland. I can certainly think of a few, but I'd love to know what your ideas are as well. And then I'll create an art piece inspired from that word prompt. And feel free to come back next week when I also will announce I will choose the 3 countries for our options for November. So they will be revealed then, and you can feel free to vote on which country you'd like to see. So thank you so much for watching and sticking with me to the end. I know it was a long one. So for now, just take care of yourselves, and if you can, somebody else. And as I dedicate this one to my dad, I will sign off here with the word ciao.